What up, y'all? It's your boy Fro, and today I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite films, the 1999 kids movie, Stuart Little 1. Ain't nothing to it but to do it. Now, right off the bat, this is one of my favorite films of all time, and I know you can call me goofy for that, but I have a very strong nostalgic sense with this film, and even nostalgic sense aside, I recently watched 1 and 2 back to back, and I couldn't help but stop smiling. I think they still hold up rather well, and I think 1 and 2 are extremely underrated films. The first film has a 6.0 on IMDb, and I honestly feel like it should be at least a 7.2 or 7.5, and I know that's really nerdy of me, but Stuart Little 1, I think still holds up very well. I think this is a magical film. Michael J. Fox does a wonderful job voicing our title character, and I can't help but root for Stuart with every viewing. The Little family, Gina Davis is playing Eleanor Little, the mama in the family, and one of my favorite actors, Hugh Laurie, is playing the father in the family, Frederick. Now, they have wonderful chemistry together. They're one of my favorite couples ever in movie history. I think they're underrated in that sense as well. Gina Davis and Hugh Laurie, A+ chemistry. I think they do a wonderful job going through their parental troubles with Stuart. And I do like Jonathan Lipnicki as the son George. It's strange. I think Jonathan isn't brought up as much nowadays, but Stuart Little, Jerry Maguire, the little vampire, I think he had some bangers in my opinion. He was a really dope child actor for sure. Now, there is a bit of emotional baggage in this film for me, I must admit, because I can relate to it very heavily as someone who was adopted when he was younger, and that's what we go through with Stuart. When we're first introduced to him, he's at the adoption agency or at the orphanage, and Mr. and Mrs. Little are looking for a new son to adopt and a new brother for their son George. But they eventually grow a love and understanding for Stuart the more they get to know him, and they do bring him back home to the little house. Now, George at first is very confrontational towards Stuart. He's like, hey, I wanted a bigger brother. I got a little brother. He can't even pass the food dishes. He's throwing some pretty hurtful zingers at Stuart. And it is pretty hard to watch at first, but as the movie progresses, George does start to really bond with Stuart and get to know him more as well. And he can't help but have his brother's back, and Stuart has his back. Like one of my favorite scenes where George is building a ship, and he's in a contest, a sailing ship contest, remote control ships. And it's a pretty intense sequence because Stuart doesn't mean to mess up, but he accidentally breaks George's remote control to the ship, and it looks like he is effed over. But this is why I love Stuart as a character, because he jumps on George's ship without a moment's notice, and he wins the race for George. And again, the way that this scene is filmed is really intense. I love the camera work in this movie overall, but I love the use of miniature objects to make them appear bigger through Stuart's perspective. The movie does a wonderful job at that, 100%. It's one of my favorite aspects of the film. The camera trickery and the illusions are very old school technique that are very classic, and they still hold up. The visual effects in this film are fantastic. Stuart still looks good as an animation, and as goofy as the cats can be in this movie, they still look really well animated when they talk. And I can't believe I almost forgot to mention Snowbell, the house cat for the little house. Now, I think Nathan Lane does a fantastic job voicing Snowbell, this really grouchy and bitter cat that absolutely hates Stuart with all his might. But you start to see this sense of family come into the picture where Snowbell's like, I hate Stuart, but at the end of the day, the Littles absolutely love him, and without Stuart, they're miserable, so we need Stuart into the picture. And I love how the film progresses and develops with that. Snowbell hates him at first, but eventually loves him like a family member. But Snowbell does some pretty shady things through the film. Like, he's in cahoots with the cats in town who are pretty grimy. They're on the grimier side. He comes up with this plot to have Stuart kicked out of the house, but the grimy alley cats take it a bit farther, and they're like, we want him killed. And the head of the gangster cat crew is voiced by Chaz Palminteri, who's an incredible, legendary Italian actor. And the goofy Godfather, Goodfellas kind of vibe that the cats are giving, Italian gangsters, is hilarious. And it absolutely works for me still to this day. It gives me some of the bigger chuckles. And a lot of the cats are a bit dim-witted. They're more on the slower side. And I do have to mention that there is a bit of dark humor, a little bit darker than you might expect, coming from the cats and the way that they banter and the lines that they're spewing, like, yeah, we're going to eat the mouse boy. And like, there's certain lines in here where you're like, whoa, that's a bit dark, but I don't mind it at all. I love it, but it's just a warning for any parents that are thinking about showing this film to their kids. Me, I don't mind at all. I would show this film to my kids happily. There is a bit of dark humor here and there that can be considered a bit mean-spirited. Again, I don't mind, but it's just a warning to the parents. When we get closer to the third act, Stuart's real parents pop up surprisingly and want to take Stuart back home with them. They pop up at the little house, and the mother's voiced by Jennifer Tilly. Very noticeable. I'm not sure who voices the father, the mouse father. But this scene and this sequence is really sad for me because Stuart has grown such a fantastic relationship with the little family, and he's easily a part of this family. But when the mouse mom and the dad show up, it's a twist of emotions because we come to find out that they are imposters. Snowbell realizes that he messed up. He was in cahoots with the cats to set up this plan for these fake parents to show up at the little house. So Snowbell is on it, but he starts to grow a guilty conscience, as does the fake mother played by Jennifer Tilly. And she's breaking down. She's like, tell him the truth. They eventually tell Stuart. They spill the beans. And Stuart rides around in this awesome little miniature car that George gifted him, which I love. I always loved as a kid. I always thought Stuart riding around in this mini car was the coolest thing of all time. I know that's super nerdy, but 100% one of the coolest things ever. And the use of the camera trickery too when he's driving in the car, and the fact it's a remote control car enhanced with a little bit of CGI, I think the look of it is awesome to me. I'm getting a little bit off track, but Stuart is riding around in his car, and we have a really intense chase scene between the cats as they're going after Stuart. He's trying to escape in the car, and there's a gang of them. And I love the camera work use of this sequence. I love the musical score by Alan Silvestri. I don't know how to say his last name. He's a legendary composer. Fantastic musical score in the first and second. He also did the Back to the Future films too, so he's a regular Michael J. Fox collaborator. But in the finale, Stuart is able to climb up in a tree. Snowbell has his back. Snowbell does a 360 and he's protecting Stuart. All the cats follow up in a tree. Snowbell steps on one of the branches and all the cats fall into the water. And just when Monty, the lead gangster played by Chaz, is about to attack Snowbell, Stuart saves him, hits him in the face with a tree branch. He falls in the water. And off screen, it's assumed that he gets eaten by dogs, the lead gangster cat. And it's pretty dark but funny to me. Stuart is able to make his way back home with Snowbell, and we have a really sweet ending where George closes the curtain, and it reminds me of a 1950s finale like I Love Lucy with the font titles, the end going across the screen, and it's a really sweet, happy ending. Again, I always have a great time with Stuart Little 1 and 2. I think the chemistry between the entire family is fantastic. Gina Davis and Hugh Laurie have a wonderful chemistry. The humor can be a little bit goofy and kooky, but I don't mind it at all. I think it's actually really wholesome. Sure, I can see if some people think this movie is a little bit sappy when it comes to some of the more sadder moments in the film, but I wholeheartedly love them, and I have damn near no problems with this film. I do think the 6.0 on IMDb should be higher. That's just me. But I'm going to give the first Stuart Little a 9.5 out of 10. Now, random fact, M. Night Shyamalan is a writer on this movie. I know that's completely random, but if anybody didn't know that, anybody in the audience, Shyamalan wrote this movie. There's 2 people credited as writers, but when I rewatched this movie a little bit later as an adult, there are some lines here where I'm like, that feels very Shyamalan. They tell a horrible story of how Stuart's parents, his real parents, were killed in a tragic mushroom cream of soup accident where the cans toppled over them. And the writing style of this felt very Shyamalan, 100%. But I think Besides Sixth Sense and Signs and Unbreakable, this is one of the better movies he wrote. Stuart Little 1. That's crazy. I couldn't believe that when I grew up and found that out. But that's it, y'all. Those are my thoughts. What do you think about Stuart Little 1? Are you a fan? Are you not a fan? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Comment below. Let me know your thoughts. In the meantime, between time, I'm on to the next review. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate you. Thizzle Reviews. Out.